The issue of enforced disappearances remains one of the most painful and unresolved aspects of the situation in Indian illegally occupied Kashmir. The latest court ruling has once again brought questions of justice, accountability, and the fate of thousands of missing persons into focus. To discuss its broader implications, we are joined by Dr. Irfan Raja, Geopolitical Analyst, joining us from Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you, sir, for joining us. So, how significant is the court's decision to issue a death certificate after nearly 3 decades? And could it set a legal or judicial precedent for the other enforced disappearance cases in Indian occupied Kashmir?
First of all, thank you very much for having me in your program. That's a very timely question. I would say it is difficult to predict anything given the Modi's government past record of human right abuses and which is actually going on not only in Kashmir, in other parts of India as well, in Assam and elsewhere, And particularly, you have seen past week, there have been the release of a film, Satluj, which has been banned and which was on the same topic, the missing persons in Punjab after 1984. When the Indian Army they invaded the Sikh temple, which is the holiest site for them. So they banned the film and sending them a very strong message that this will not be allowed. So we have to wait and see, actually, although I'm hopeful, like many other commentators and independent scholars and journalists, that it's a basic human right. And, the missing people, is really hard to even think about those who are passing through such a hard tests. As you know, the data so far tells us, which has been mentioned by the Hurriyat leader, Abdul Hamid as well, there are over 10,000 women since 2019 who have been missing. And it's really hard for the families to, live their everyday life knowing that whether they are alive or dead or whether they are in which conditions. So overall, court on the part of court, yes, they have done something which is praiseworthy and they deserve the credit for it. But the thing is, more depends on whether this is just in theory now. So we have to wait and see how practical this would be.
So, what are the main obstacles preventing independent investigations, DNA identification, or unidentified graves and accountability in cases of alleged enforced disappearance in the region?
That's a very good point and question. The thing is, you see, the India present itself as a democratic country. Though you have seen all the Modi's visits abroad, particularly in Europe, uh, this is something very important to see that in theory it is they are sending a message to Europe and America elsewhere at this time. By doing this, government may be on the same, we say on the same boat with the judiciary. But that's what one may predict it, or that could be one assumption. On the whole, it is difficult for for the court and for people and the public bodies or the pressure groups to see in reality. In practical, it's really difficult. It's just in theory, it is okay. Yes, they have uh, passed on the order, which is praiseworthy, as I previously said, and it deserves some credit. But the more is to see in practical, and I think there one hurdle should be coming from the Indian establishment side, because they have been involved in. The case of Abdul Rashid Wani, who has been abducted and who have been killed by a major Indian major after he was coming back from, selling his some timber. He was a timber merchant. That story was covered by all international media, but not in the Indian media as it should be. So we have to again wait and see, because there is, as I said, there are hurdles, particularly from the Indian establishment side. It would be difficult to it.
Sir, how have enforced disappearances affected Kashmiri society over the years, particularly the families of the missing? And what are the long-term psychological and social consequences of this?
You see, it's. I have to bring here some examples of people in Gaza who doesn't know, many thousands of them are the children and the young people and the women doesn't know where are their fathers, brothers, and even the siblings. They are in Israeli jail, so which is a very relevant example here, given the Greater Israel project and the Greater Akhand Bharat, which they called as Greater India project, is linked because that's what Modi government is doing in Kashmir. The missing people, actually, most of them have been dead, as you mentioned. The unidentified graves, that's number 2,700, according to Al Jazeera report, which is authentic. So we have to see that it's a everyday kind of a psychological impact on the people who are going through. It's a trauma, and it is really, really difficult to cope with it, particularly for those who don't know exactly the whereabouts of their siblings or parents or even friends. So this is impacting human health, mental health, and it has an impact on upcoming generations. Particularly, they are living with such horrible conditions, which are, as a human, which are really difficult to cope with.
What has been the response of the Indian government to allegations of enforced disappearances and custodial abuses? And how do human rights organizations assess those responses?
Well, again, taking your question part B first, regarding the human rights organization, particularly, they are, doing their best, and they are trying to get into. But there's a government control, there's a media control. You can see there are Kashmiris, Palestinians, and people in Myanmar. They are slow news in the media. We use this term slow news, that there's unworthy victims. So this is applicable here on Kashmiris because the government is sophisticatedly and systematically control these narratives, telling the people like, oh, we are a democratic country, the court decisions, the court has decided, against us. But on the whole, they may be on the same side, or on the same boat. So it is really difficult to exactly sit and see how whether the uh, you know human rights organizations, what they are, their reports are being acknowledged, and the true number of people affected and victims. All this is really, really difficult because you see, recently the human rights organizations, what they have been doing in case of Gaza is just in theory, just words. So in practical, what we are interested in to see what happened in practical. And in practical, it would be really difficult, particularly when the sitting government is like Hindutva, like the radical and the far right Hindu extremists.
So, given renewed calls for justice following this court ruling, what practical steps, legal, institutional, or international, could help establish the truth about the missing and provide accountability for victims' families?
I'm not expert on this, like the legal side of it, but as far as I can see from the media side of it, if the liberal media, and there are people in India, they have been raising voice against, the brutalities of the Indian army in occupied Kashmir. So there are plentiful people, and we have been hearing those voices very loud and clear. So I would see it would not be easy for the government to curb all this, the court ruling, and subsequently what will going to happen. There might be and there will be wishful thinking, big campaigns, and the human rights organizations, coupled with the liberal media and the scholars and politicians, they will come together and will raise their voice for these victims. And they're not only in Kashmir, inside India. It's these the cases applies to Assam. These applies to Punjab, as I mentioned to you the example of Satluj film, which has been banned, and which is a true story of Jaswant Singh, who was a human right activist, and he was investigating the same, like cremations, which was being shown in the film, that thousands of Sikhs been cremated without knowing their without their identities, to hiding their identities, and that's what the government were doing, and that's what they continue to do.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.